We in to stay quiet. Be careful a Dargren secret. As if the Dargon we share ne'er know to stay quiet.
Wet your head, Hal.
Be careful.
The late summer afternoon was quiet, the kind of golden light that made even ordinary rooms feel soft and intimate. The narrator, a 22-year-old man, had arrived at his friend's house to help with some boxes, expecting nothing more than a simple favor. Yet from the moment he stepped through the doorway, he noticed small details that felt somehow weighty. The scrape of his sneakers on the hardwood floor, the faint scent of lemon detergent mingling with warm sunlight, even the faint hum of the refrigerator, all of it seemed sharper, more alive. She appeared in the kitchen, a 40-year-old American Caucasian woman with long black hair gathered loosely at the nape of her neck. Her presence was calm and effortless, yet it held a quiet authority. She moved with grace, lifting a stack of plates with ease, her fingers brushing lightly against the smooth surfaces, her curvy figure carrying herself with confident poise. Her skin was lightly tanned, soft laugh lines visible at the corners of her eyes, freckles faint on her cheeks, the subtle markers of age and life lived fully. Her dark brown eyes, warm and observant, flicked toward him with a welcoming smile, yet there was a trace of mischief in the curve of her lips, a hint of something unspoken. The narrator's attention lingered on small gestures. The careful way she held a cup of tea, how her fingertips grazed the rim of a plate, the gentle tilt of her head when she noticed him fumbling with the boxes. Each movement, ordinary to her, carried a weight he could not ignore. His internal dialogue reflected the tension building quietly within him. Admiration, hesitation, and a hesitant curiosity about the subtle warmth he felt whenever their hands brushed or their eyes met. She handed him a towel to wipe the counter, and their fingers met briefly. The touch was fleeting, yet electric, a moment so simple it could be dismissed, but the narrator's heart recorded it as if it were monumental. Their conversation was light, practical, a joke about misplacing a box, a comment on the lingering heat of the afternoon. Yet beneath it, something unspoken passed. The silence between sentences stretched, charged with awareness. Emotionally, Keynote 1 plants the seed of tension and curiosity. The narrator is drawn to her not out of impulsive desire, but out of fascination with her composure, warmth, and understated beauty. He notices the markers of her age, the subtle lines, the gentle maturity, and it deepens the allure. At the same time, he is acutely aware of boundaries. Friend's mother, neighbor, someone older, someone experienced. The conflict is internal, a quiet push and pull between respect and the unexpected stirrings of attraction. The scene closes with a small, defining gesture. She tucks a stray strand of hair behind his ear, her fingers lingering just a moment too long, her eyes meeting his in an instant of shared understanding. And then, in a low, intimate whisper, she says something that tilts the ordinary afternoon into something charged with possibility. If anyone finds out, you'll be in big trouble. It is a warning, a joke, a promise. And in that single moment, the slow burn of their story begins. The sunlight slants across both of them, warm and forgiving, holding the tension suspended between them as the day continues quietly around them. The next day carried the same warm, golden sunlight that seemed almost intentional, as if the world wanted to linger over ordinary details that had suddenly become significant. The narrator, still 22, found himself returning to the house under a more personal pretense, a casual offer to help organize a small collection of books and knickknacks in the living room. The air was fragrant with polished wood and faint traces of lavender from a nearby diffuser. Each small noise, the shuffle of pages, the soft click of a ceramic vase being moved, the gentle thrum of conversation from the street outside, felt amplified in a way that made the house seem simultaneously cozy and alive. The woman appeared again, 40 years old, this time wearing a soft yellow blouse paired with dark trousers. Her long black hair cascaded over her shoulders, catching the sunlight streaming through the large windows. She moved with a deliberate grace, curving around furniture as if the room itself respected her presence. Her lightly tanned skin seemed to glow in the brightness, the subtle freckles on her cheeks and the soft smile lines near her eyes enhancing the natural warmth of her expression. The narrator noticed the quiet confidence in her posture, shoulders relaxed, head held high, but her gestures carried a gentle attentiveness that made each movement feel personal. Their conversation started practically: which shelf should hold which book, where to place a delicate ceramic figurine. But the ordinary tone could not mask the underlying tension. Each glance, each slight pause before answering, stretched moments longer than necessary. When she leaned over to point at a title, her fingers lightly brushed his wrist. The touch was fleeting, but the narrator felt it resonate in a way that went beyond simple physical contact. A warmth spread across his arm, subtle but undeniable, leaving a trace of awareness he could not ignore. The emotional undercurrent of Keynote 2 lies in the deepening awareness between the two characters. The narrator is drawn not only to her beauty and elegance, but also to the calm certainty in the way she navigates her world. Her age is evident in small, graceful ways. The faint curve of a laugh line as she chuckles, the slight steadiness in her hand when holding fragile objects, the quiet wisdom that informs her advice. This maturity contrasts with his youthful uncertainty, creating a tension that is neither reckless nor inappropriate, but charged with admiration and curiosity. The narrative progresses through subtle physicality and shared focus. She passes him a stack of books. His fingers linger slightly longer than necessary on hers. He adjusts a picture frame on the wall, and she stands nearby, her presence both comforting and subtly commanding. Their eyes meet across the room, exchanging small, unspoken observations, a slight arch of the brow, a soft smile, a fleeting moment of vulnerability. These gestures build intimacy without violating boundaries, keeping the tension tender and relatable. The scene concludes with another defining moment. A quiet shared laughter at an oddly titled book, their shoulders brushing as they straighten together. Her eyes meet his, carrying a gentle acknowledgement of something unspoken, and in her tone, soft, almost conspiratorial, she murmurs something that makes his pulse catch. It is an ordinary day, transformed into a meaningful memory. The moment leaves both aware of the invisible line between friendship, admiration, and something quietly stirring, setting the stage for the emotional depth and complexity to unfold in the next act. The following weekend carried a lighter, almost playful energy, the kind of afternoon that felt designed for discovery. The narrator, still 22, had agreed to accompany the woman to a small cafe nearby, ostensibly to grab coffee while she sorted through some personal errands. The sunlight streamed through large windows, casting bright patches across the polished wooden floor. The air smelled faintly of roasted beans and fresh pastries, mingling with the warm summer breeze drifting in from the street. Every ordinary sound, the clink of a spoon against ceramic, the hum of conversation, the distant ringing of a bicycle bell, seemed heightened, sharpening his awareness of her presence beside him. She arrived in a fitted blouse and pencil skirt, her long black hair cascading over her shoulders in soft waves. Her lightly tanned skin caught the sunlight, revealing subtle freckles across the bridge of her nose and soft laugh lines that made her expressions warm and approachable. Her curvy figure and graceful posture suggested both confidence and ease, a presence that drew attention without seeking it. Her dark brown eyes carried a knowing sparkle, a subtle blend of amusement and curiosity, as if she were fully aware of the effect she had and quietly enjoyed the understated dance of glances between them. Their conversation was casual, focusing on coffee orders, light-hearted observations about the street outside, and minor personal anecdotes. Yet beneath the words, the tension hummed with quiet intensity. Each pause held meaning. Each brush of the arm as she reached for her cup made his pulse jump. Physicality remained subtle and safe, fingers briefly touching while passing a napkin. A slight lean forward across the table to examine a pastry menu. The warmth of her hand briefly near his own. These moments, though seemingly mundane, became charged with unspoken understanding. Keynote 3 is about the slow deepening of connection through shared space, conversation, and small gestures. The narrator finds himself attuned to her energy, the way her smile changes when she laughs genuinely, the tilt of her head when she listens intently, the measured cadence of her voice that makes ordinary words feel intimate. Her age is evident in these subtle markers. The confidence in decision-making, the ease with which she navigates social spaces, the nuanced expressiveness that comes from years of experience. This contrast between his youthful curiosity and her poised maturity creates an undercurrent of tension that is both compelling and emotionally safe for the audience. The story progresses through sensory-rich observation and internal reflection. He notices the warmth radiating from her hand as she picks up her cup, the faint perfume lingering in the air, the sun catching highlights in her hair, and the way her eyes meet his briefly across the table, holding an unspoken acknowledgement of their shared awareness. The cafe, bright and ordinary, becomes a private stage for this subtle exchange of glances, smiles, and light touches, moments that seem inconsequential to the world outside, but monumental to him. The scene closes with a quiet, defining moment. She leans forward slightly to point out something on the menu, and their hands brush once more. Her eyes meet his, carrying a gentle, teasing warmth. It is a fleeting gesture, ordinary in action, but heavy with unspoken meaning. The narrator's pulse quickens, and he realizes that these small moments are quietly reshaping his understanding of attraction, boundaries, and desire. The afternoon fades into memory, leaving both aware that what began as a simple favor is now blossoming into something far more emotionally significant. The following week brought a quiet afternoon filled with sunlight streaming into the open-plan kitchen. The narrator, 22, had returned under the pretense of helping the woman organize ingredients for an upcoming dinner. Yet the ordinary task felt unusually charged. Every small movement, glance, and gesture carried significance he hadn't expected. The aroma of fresh herbs and simmering sauces mingled with the warm light, making the kitchen feel like a private world separate from the bustling outside street. She was dressed casually in a patterned apron over a pale dress, her long black hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. The sunlight caught highlights in the strands, giving her an almost luminous presence. Her lightly tanned skin glowed in the afternoon light, freckles on her cheeks and subtle laugh lines enhancing her mature beauty. Her curvy figure moved gracefully from counter to stove, a quiet command of her space that was effortless yet captivating. Her dark brown eyes flicked toward him frequently, curious, observant, and teasing, as if tracking his reactions to her subtle gestures. The scene's emotional focus is tension built through shared, ordinary activities. He watches her chop vegetables, noticing the careful precision in her movements and the way she instinctively aligns each piece on the cutting board. A small laugh escapes her at his fumbling attempt to balance a bowl of ingredients. And in that laugh, there is warmth, amusement, and something softer, a quiet invitation to linger in the shared moment. Their hands brush repeatedly while passing utensils, folding napkins, or arranging plates, each contact charged with gentle electricity. These touches remain safe, YouTube appropriate, fingertips lightly grazing, shoulders brushing when reaching for the same space. Yet the narrator feels the weight of each interaction. Narrative progression unfolds through both action and observation. The narrator becomes increasingly aware of the unspoken dynamics between them. Her subtle encouragement, the way she tilts her head when he explains something, the slight smile when she notices him stealing a glance at her eyes. Her maturity contrasts with his youthful hesitance, creating a tension that is emotional rather than physical. She exudes a confidence born of experience, but her gestures are intentionally tender, allowing him space to navigate his feelings responsibly. The internal conflict he experiences, admiration mixed with restraint, is what makes the slow burn emotionally resonant. The sensory richness continues with tactile and environmental details. He notices the warmth of her hands when passing a dish, the smoothness of the counter under his fingers, the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the kitchen aromas, and the brightness of sunlight reflecting off the polished surfaces. Each moment magnifies the intimacy of their interaction without overtly crossing boundaries, creating a delicate rhythm between presence and attention, observation and subtle connection. Keynote 4 reaches its emotional peak in a quiet, defining moment. While arranging a platter together, her fingers lightly brush his knuckles, and her eyes meet his with a teasing yet sincere gaze. It is a gesture both ordinary and intimate, the kind that lingers in memory. The narrator feels a mix of exhilaration and restraint, fully conscious of the unspoken promise hanging in the air. In that soft pause, the ordinary afternoon becomes a pivot point, solidifying the slow burn tension and setting the stage for deeper emotional intimacy to unfold in the following chapters. A few days later, the warmth of early afternoon seemed almost purposeful, as if the day itself conspired to give the narrator, 22, and the woman, 40, confident yet quietly vulnerable, a space to notice one another more deeply. This time, the setting was a bright backyard garden, filled with the vibrant green of freshly trimmed hedges, the scent of blooming roses, and the faint hum of bees. He had come to help with light yard work, but the air felt different, more intimate, almost conspiratorial. Every ordinary sound, the soft rustle of leaves, the clink of clay pots, the distant laughter of children on the street, seemed to heighten the awareness of her presence. She appeared in a floral blouse paired with a denim skirt, her long black hair falling in loose waves over her shoulders. The sun illuminated her lightly tanned skin, highlighting subtle freckles across her cheeks and soft laugh lines at the corners of her eyes. Her curvy figure moved with a graceful, unhurried confidence, each gesture purposeful yet effortlessly elegant. Dark brown eyes, warm and attentive, flicked toward him often, carrying both amusement and quiet curiosity. She smiled easily, a soft warmth that seemed to linger in the air around them, creating an unspoken invitation to share these moments beyond casual interaction. The narrative tension of Keynote 5 emerges through shared physicality and collaborative activity. As they carried pots of flowers together, their fingers brushed brief but electric touches that left a lingering awareness. He adjusted a large planter, and she leaned in to steady it, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder for balance. The contact was safe, YouTube appropriate, yet the narrator could feel the warmth radiating from her touch, the steady calm of her presence anchoring him in the moment. Even mundane tasks, shifting soil, watering plants, arranging blooms, became opportunities for subtle intimacy and heightened attention. Emotionally, this keynote focuses on mutual awareness and enjoyment of each other's company. The narrator notices her quiet gestures, a reassuring smile when he hesitates, the soft tilt of her head when listening intently, the measured way she guides his hands through a tricky arrangement. Her age and maturity are evident not only in her composure, but in the way she creates space for him to contribute, to learn, and to feel included. These small acts of trust and attention amplify his admiration, while also deepening the slow burn tension between them. The sensory details continue to enrich the scene. The sunlight warms the skin, highlighting the natural glow of her lightly tanned complexion and the subtle shimmer of her hair. The scent of flowers mingles with the faint perfume she wears, creating a comforting, almost intoxicating combination. He feels the rough texture of the pot against his hands, the smooth warmth of her fingers brushing his, the small vibrations of laughter shared over a minor misstep in arranging the garden. Each sensation subtly intensifies the emotional connection without crossing any boundaries, keeping the tension tender and relatable. The keynote closes with a small, defining gesture. As he sets a particularly heavy pot in place, her hand lightly brushes against his forearm, and her dark brown eyes meet his with a soft, teasing warmth. That fleeting contact is ordinary in action, but extraordinary in meaning, a moment both characters remember without needing words. The day, bright and cheerful, becomes a quiet milestone in their slow burn journey, a point where admiration, curiosity, and understated desire converge, paving the way for the deeper emotional intimacy that will unfold in the next part of the story. The evening air was crisp but still golden, carrying a brightness that softened the edges of the cityscape below. The narrator, 22, found himself accompanying the woman, 40, graceful and quietly magnetic, to a rooftop garden overlooking the neighborhood. Potted plants lined the perimeter, catching the last rays of sunlight, while the city hummed faintly in the distance. The setting felt suspended between ordinary life and something more intimate, a stage where small gestures and shared moments could grow into profound significance. She wore a flowing maxi dress, light and airy, that danced slightly in the gentle evening breeze. Her long black hair glimmered in the remaining sunlight, framing her lightly tanned face where subtle freckles and soft laugh lines spoke to her 40 years of life lived with confidence and care. Dark brown eyes, expressive and inviting, tracked his movements with quiet amusement, occasionally meeting his gaze with a warmth that seemed almost unspoken. Her curvy figure moved with natural ease, her posture relaxed yet commanding, creating an aura of approachable sophistication that drew his attention without effort. The emotional tension in Keynote 6 is centered on trust and vulnerability. As they walked along the rooftop, she placed a hand lightly on his back, a gesture of reassurance that was intimate yet wholly safe. His pulse quickened at the simple touch, noticing the warmth of her hand, the subtle firmness that conveyed both confidence and care. Conversation was gentle, light-hearted at times, but punctuated with silences that felt heavy with awareness, an unspoken acknowledgement of the unusual connection forming between them. Each glance, each shift in posture, amplified the subtle tension of mutual curiosity and unexpressed desire. Narrative progression unfolds through small, sensory interactions. He hands her a wrapped gift, something simple, thoughtful, and her reaction is immediate and revealing. One hand comes to her chest in surprise, the other reaches to accept it, fingers brushing his in the process. Her smile is soft, genuine, and slightly vulnerable, illuminating her dark brown eyes and the faint lines at their corners. The narrator notes the way her presence anchors him, how he notices the texture of her dress, the soft sway of her hair, the warmth radiating from her body, and how all of it coalesces into a profound awareness of her as both mentor and intriguing equal. Physicality remains subtle yet charged. Hands brush lightly when passing objects, shoulders occasionally touch, and she leans just enough to speak quietly in his ear. Ordinary gestures that feel extraordinary in the context of their growing emotional intimacy. The rooftop itself becomes a safe haven, a bright, open environment where they can explore the contours of trust and mutual curiosity without the intrusion of the outside world. The keynote closes with a defining, tender moment. She pauses near the edge, hands still resting lightly on his back, and looks at him with a gaze that is part reassurance, part challenge. The quiet intensity of the moment is palpable. The warmth of her touch lingers. The soft glow of sunlight highlights her features, and the narrator feels the full weight of their evolving bond. This moment marks the culmination of the slow burn tension so far, setting the stage for the emotional resolution and deepened intimacy that will arrive in the final chapter. The day had a softness to it that made the world feel unusually gentle. Sunlight spilled through the wide windows of the living room, highlighting dust motes that danced lazily in the warm air. The narrator, 22, arrived under the guise of helping with a final household task, organizing old photo albums. But the ordinary task had already transformed into something much more meaningful. Today, there was a sense of culmination, of quiet understanding, that hung in the air like the faint scent of lavender and freshly polished wood. She appeared once more, 40, confident yet tender, her long black hair falling smoothly over her shoulders. Her lightly tanned skin glowed under the bright morning light, freckles softening the mature contours of her face, and laugh lines around her eyes deepened her warmth and authenticity. Her curvy figure moved gracefully as she crossed the room, dark brown eyes meeting his with a mixture of reassurance and playful curiosity. Today, her presence felt entirely self-possessed, but she carried a subtle vulnerability that invited trust. This final chapter centers on emotional resolution, emphasizing trust, acceptance, and intimate connection rather than overt romance. The narrator notices the details that have defined their journey: the curve of her smile, the warmth in her gaze, the way she instinctively adjusts a pillow or offers a hand for balance. As they sift through albums, fingers brushing lightly over the same photograph, there's a shared quiet laughter that feels full-bodied, laughter that bridges their age difference, their initial hesitations, and the slow-building tension that has defined their encounters. Every gesture, every glance, carries the resonance of months' worth of subtle attention and growing mutual respect. Narrative progression moves toward closure through mutual recognition of feelings. The narrator acknowledges the depth of admiration and quiet desire he feels, tempered by respect and understanding of boundaries. She, in turn, allows herself moments of softness and ease, revealing glimpses of vulnerability without compromising her composed demeanor. Their interactions are punctuated by sensory detail: the brush of fingertips across a page, the warmth of shared proximity as they sit side by side on the sofa, the sunlight highlighting strands of her hair and casting a bright glow on the room. Each touch, though gentle and safe, reinforces the intimacy that has grown organically over time. The emotional peak is quiet but profound. She reaches out to tuck a strand of hair behind his ear, a gesture reminiscent of the first tentative contact that began their story. Their eyes meet, dark brown meeting dark brown, communicating trust, understanding, and unspoken fondness. There is no rush, no need for dramatic declarations, just the simple acknowledgement of a bond formed through attentiveness, patience, and subtle, consistent care. The story concludes with a sense of resolution and warmth. Ordinary moments, organizing photos, sharing light laughter, basking in sunlight, are elevated to acts of intimacy. The narrator feels both admiration and comfort, recognizing that attraction and respect can coexist in a way that is tender, sincere, and fully realized. The woman, graceful and self-assured, reciprocates the emotional openness, allowing a slow-burn connection to culminate in mutual acceptance. The bright room, sunlight spilling across both of them, symbolizes the clarity and warmth of their bond, leaving the story emotionally complete, satisfying, and YouTube-friendly, with a lingering sense of quiet joy and connection.